The Muppets. A huge part of the Walt Disney Company and a huge part of many people's lives. And in the last 24 hours, we have been given some pretty big news. Hi, my name is Luis. I'm a filmmaker specializing in animation. And I have a massive, massive love for all things Disney, parks especially, animation, films in general. So if you do like that sort of stuff here on the channel, then please click that like and subscribe button. We have a goal of 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2024. And with just over 4 weeks to go by the time this video comes out, we've got just over 100 subscribers to go. So please hit that like and subscribe button. It's free. You can unsubscribe at any time. And if you're like me and like all things nerdy, Disney, animation, and of course, as this video suggests, Muppets, then please. It was announced this year at D23 that a brand new Monsters, Inc. section will be coming to Hollywood studios. Now, the original sort of like concepts for these depicted two different areas. One very much looked like Muppets Courtyard, and one that also looked like the animation courtyard. The reason for this is actually because Disney was very conflicted into which area to put it in, and we will go into those a little bit further on in the video. But it was officially announced last night that unfortunately, the new Monsters, Inc. land and the brand new ride that is looking awesome will officially see the closure of Muppet Courtyard and Muppet Vision 3D. Now, the reason that it wasn't actually located in the sort of launch bay area as it was predicted, of course, one of the main concept pieces we were given, this was actually a piece of concept art from 2022. So it really does show how much and how far in advance the Imagineers are thinking about what they can do with the parks. Because of course, any change, it's not a little change, it's a pretty major one. But the first piece of concept art we were given definitely looks like the launch bay area. However, the reason that they couldn't do this, and the reason I think that they haven't gone through with it, along with many other creators as well, is that there are a few very important Disney office buildings on site just behind launch bay and the animation courtyard area. Now, at the moment, Disney is going through a very tough time in terms of their offices. There's people working out of trailers and things like that, and we've heard some very big things coming out of the parks because of this. So office space for Disney is definitely something that they want to keep. There are so many different departments in this office space. It's a 4-story building, which is home to things like the recording booths and things like that. Obviously, you've got your technology and you've got your general behind the scenes as well. And it's just an area that Disney cannot risk losing, which is a massive shame because I definitely think this area can change. And there has been rumors that Animation Courtyard is going to change in the next couple of years. So maybe we'll see an announcement of that at next D23 in 2 years' time. We're looking at either a Zootopia, Zootropolis themed area. We'll see how well the second film that comes out next year will do. Or it's rumoured that it's going to be changing to an Incredibles area. Again, we've got a third film on the way at the moment, directed by Brad Bird. So we will see how the reception of both of those sequels / third film trilogy comes, and then we'll see obviously what that changes into. Is it a bad use of park space? Yes, 100%. Realistically, if you want corporate office space, don't do it on Disney World property. Yes, it's obviously there for the convenience, but offices can be located anywhere, especially in the sort of nearby Bay Lake area. But this could be used as an expansion to the parks. It could be a far bigger area that they are just not using. But I digress. Yes. It is official that unfortunately Muppet Courtyard will be getting replaced. All of our favourite buildings, everything like that will be staying because of course it's much more cost effective, especially for Disney and things like that. So many big plans on the horizon with Villains Land. You've got so many new areas, locations opening up all across the globe. They really want to keep the cost low as much as they can. And seeing as they're building a giant new ride building at the end of the courtyard, they're going to need as much space as they can get. Now, before we go into the actual courtyard itself, speaking of this large building, obviously we were shown different concepts at D23, as we've said. However, we also were shown a mock-up of what the ride building would look like. Now, this is also an older ride mock-up, so it could have changed very much over the last couple of years. However, it is set a hell of a lot further back than we actually thought it was going to be. And by the looks of it, it's actually going to protrude into the staff car park, which I don't really mind as much area as we can get in this space. I'm not at all mad that the Monsters area is coming. I actually pitched the Monsters ride to get into university, of which I've just graduated from, which I find kind of crazy. So, want my rights. But it was definitely a weird coincidence. It's definitely a ride that people have been wanting for a very long time. Of course, it's a free flow system with your legs dropping through the floor. It's going to be a really cool ride. And of course, they're probably going to be taking things from the Monsters, Inc. attraction over in California Adventure, because that is rumored that that is where the new Avatar land is going to be going. So they'll probably repurpose a few things here and there, but yeah, it's a DoorDash ride and it looks really good. And it's going to be situated right at the end of the courtyard area, which of course will be probably changed to Monstropolis or something like that. Again, as per some of the concept art, we will then also see some new shops, some new restaurants, of course, Harryhausen's. Let me get a rip for Pizza Rizzo. And of course, the most iconic part of Muppet Courtyard is Muppet Vision 3D. It does, by the looks of the concept art, look that we are going to get a brand new attraction there. Disney have already said that they do not want to move Mike's Scare Floor over to a different park. They want to keep it in Magic Kingdom, and they don't want to leave any more sort of free area because, of course, Stitch's Great Escape has been there for I don't know how many years and has just been left abandoned, and it's freaky as anything. So yeah, officially Mike's Scare Floor will be staying in the Magic Kingdom, which I kind of guess makes sense, but then there's like 3 big animation rides that are over that way now and aren't going to be making their way to Hollywood Studios, which is a bit of a shame. Of course, you've got the Toy Story Land over there as well, whereas Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger Spin is still over there. But yeah, as the concept art suggests, it's literally just going to be a total retheme. So there is a new show that Disney have confirmed will be going in there. It's not going to be a replacement of Mike's Scare Floor. It's going to be a brand new show. And by the looks of it, the building itself is staying exactly where it is. Of course, we can tell this is Muppet Courtyard by the iconic tower, which used to have that massive blimp, or the massive balloon even, sorry, of Kermit's head floating above it. By the looks of it, we're also going to get some new meet and greets. Of course, as I say, some shops will be pretty cool, but Sully, Mike, get us some permanent meet and greet for the 2 of them. By the looks of it, you've got CDA agents walking around, but I don't know if these guys are just going to be like statues that are placed here and there. And of course, there might be a show that comes up here and there. But it'd be really cool to see a permanent meet and greet for George Sanderson as well, a rarer Disneyland character who has done meet and greets previously. And of course, we've seen other costumes that have been created. Of course, the Pixar Together show over in Disneyland Paris does demonstrate some of those costumes that could be used. Of course, that's the thing that a lot of people have definitely been upset about. And the reason that Disney didn't announce this as the actual reset at D23 this summer was, of course, because they did not know their actual plans for the Muppets. They wanted to keep them in the parks because they know that us Muppet fans are proper Muppet fans. We will lose our mind and there will be huge backlash on Josh D'Amaro and the whole Imagineering team, as well as the Disney company itself, if the Muppets are completely scrapped from the park. There is already a lot of sort of anger and hatred of the fact that they aren't in the parks as majorly as they used to be, and we'll be going over a few of those things today in the video. But it has been announced that they will be keeping Muppet Vision in some way, shape or form, keeping it alive, whether that's coming onto Disney Plus, which would be really lovely, or my personal theory is it's going to be relocated, so stay tuned for that one. Of course, Muppet Vision has been in the park since 1991, and it was actually Jim Henson's last project he worked on before he passed away, which is a huge shame. And to be honest, that's a massive reason as to why people want to keep it in the parks, because he is an icon. And of course, with the buyout of the Muppets and sort of the Muppet name in 2004, for quite a small purchase of $75 million US, that's probably not too bad to acquire the rights. And of course, that then led to that release of the 2011 Muppet film, which in my opinion revamped the Muppets for a lot of people. However, other than Muppet Vision 3D, they kind of disappeared from the parks, especially over the last couple years. I mean, they've done the occasional cameo or like occasional special here and there. They kind of linked themselves to the park in the fact that they did a Muppets Haunted Mansion. They were integrated in promo content and random collaborations, like we saw Fozzie on the Jungle Cruise, which was kind of cool. And other than that, there's been no actual like Muppet attraction. There has never been a Muppet ride in the parks. I say in the parks because in the 80s, there was a random like safety traffic control in a load of different shopping malls all across the US, which is kind of cool. So I'd love to see them sort of pay respects to that in some way, shape or form, because that's the OG Muppet ride. But it is official, we are getting an actual Muppet ride. Because of course, the Rock and Rollercoaster is officially gonna be Muppified. Of course, the contract for Aerosmith and the theming of the current Rock and Roller Coaster is officially up, or is coming to a close. And with Aerosmith now retiring from international tours, I think it's probably time for Disney to cut ties. And what better way to collaborate with some part of a Disney property than the Electric Mayhem? So by the looks of it, Dr. Teeth, Kermit, and the rest of the Electric Mayhem will be going through a brand new retheme with iconic faces across the musical history. So I really think it's going to be an easy retheme to do. Just picture it, right? The entire area is going to be hippie, it's going to be fun, it's going to be crazy, wacky, it's going to combine what we know and love about Muppet Courtyard right now with a sort of really crazy music hippie vibe that we obviously know and love from Electric Mayhem. And if you haven't already watched the Muppets Mayhem, go and check it out, because it was a really good show and it wasn't talked about enough, mainly because the Muppets just aren't a name that the younger audiences are really familiar with at this point in time. So hopefully this brand new retheme and the sort of potential of the area to expand could really bring that to a younger audience. But what I want from this area is a complete Muppet bonanza. So the area is going to stay the same. I do think they literally just need to retheme everything. Of course, the guitar, I reckon it should stay there. I reckon it should just change, maybe change shape. It could be cool to change the guitar itself. And of course, as it wraps round into Sunset Boulevard, you've got the car that sits on the top of the entranceway. Just picture this car, but with Kermit and the Electric Mayhem hanging out the top of it. It would be sick to walk through. If they did something along the vibe of that, in the fact that they've like taken over this section of the park or taken over Sunset Boulevard, I think would be really cool. Especially bringing that crazy world of the Muppets that we know and love from the parks already into the world that we love. I definitely think this could be a good area. And plus, if I was an Imagineer, I'd want to work on this expansion. It would be so fun. So, where is Muppet Vision 3D going? Now, as I say, I do think it's going to drop on Disney Plus in some way, shape or form, especially if it doesn't go into the parks. I think that's the only way they're doing it. But they have been slightly cryptic, by the way, with how they've said this, but they've said that they will not be getting rid of the Muppet Vision. They will be keeping it in some way, shape or form. So I personally think that the Muppet Courtyard area is going to remain, but it's not obviously going to be where the new Monsters Inc. land is. Muppet Courtyard, as we know it, is going to be relocated to outside Rock and Rollercoaster, and it's going to be extended up Sunset Boulevard to one particular building. Just above Rock and Rollercoaster, there is a show building, which does already have a show in it. It is currently, or has been, it's been recently closed, the Lightning McQueen Racing Academy, a beloved feature by everybody who has come to see it, and I do think that might be relocated in some way, shape or form to the brand new Cars World, which is coming, again announced at D23 this year. However, it's currently being rethemed and turned around to a villain show. Now, many people have been saying that the villain show is there to stay. It's not. It's not going to be. Disney are opening an entire villains area of the park. They are not going to keep one random villain show for the next 5 or 6 years. It's not going to happen, okay? So what they're going to do is they're going to keep that there until Villains Land opens or until it's making some sort of progress, and then they're going to swap it out. I personally think Muppet Vision is going to go inside that building. I think it's going to be ever so slightly changed. I think the film's going to stay the same, and I think the general scripting is going to change, but I definitely think they're going to learn from some of the mistakes they've had with Muppet Vision and change it ever so slightly for a newer audience. And I do think it's going to be a rolling show here to stay. I then think that the entire Rock and Roller Coaster area is going to be opened up, the trees are going to get removed, and the entire area is going to be opened up into a brand new Muppet Courtyard with new restaurants, meet and greets, and things like that, to which we will go on to in this video of what I want to see in the brand new Muppet Courtyard. Disney have already said that they'd like to keep iconic parts of Muppet Vision 3D. Of course, you've got Statler and Waldorf, some fantastic animatronics there. I think they will repurpose those animatronics. Of course, you've got Sweetums as a free roam character, the only life-size one to exist at this current stage in time, which I think is sick. And of course, the Swedish Chef, again, a beloved character as well. However, a big part of this announcement is there is no time period that has been given. Now, in my personal opinion, I think it is going to be pretty soon that this is going to start sort of taking place, because it has been announced that the Monsters area is going to be breaking ground in 2025. So the actual ride building itself, I think, is going to start construction in 2025, and then sort of later on in 2025, 2026, they're going to start shutting down sections of Muppet Courtyard, keeping Muppet Vision alive for as long as physically possible. Then, as soon as the Rock and Roller Coaster has been finished and flipped over, bearing in mind it's probably not going to take too long to do, because, I mean, they need to swap out a few sort of cutouts in the actual ride itself and retheme the area / the queue. It's going to be nice and easy to flip it over, and again, cost effective. So I really think that as soon as that Aerosmith contract is final and they will then be in some legal battle with them, I think they're going to flip it around in a matter of weeks. I then think the Rock and Roller Coaster is going to open first, and the Muppet Vision 3D is going to stay until they need to get rid of it once the rest of the sort of Monstropolis area has been completed. I then think they're going to flip Muppet Vision over to that Lightning McQueen Academy building, and I think the entire area will then open the following summer, or potentially the following sort of Christmas period, when there's going to be an influx of guests. It will then probably open before Monsters Inc. The entire area, of course, needs to go through vigorous testing with the ride and things like that, but we do already know that Retheming of these Rock and Roller Coaster attractions is nice and quick. We've already seen it in Disneyland Paris. Of course, now Avengers Flight Force. That was the Rock and Roller Coaster ride that literally just got a retheme. It's nice and easy. It's a dark ride. It doesn't need retheming inside. Just a little bit of theming here and there. And to be honest, I think this entire thing is the reason that we've not seen the return of the Muppets in certain areas since COVID. Many sort of last seeings of the Muppets beside Muppets Vision 3D has been since COVID. Of course, everything shut down, and since then we haven't seen the return of certain characters and certain elements since the 2020s. However, I definitely think that 5 years down the line, this is where the Imagineering team have really been getting their heads together, because the Muppets is a very, very confusing topic to talk about. Of course, they are a very iconic part of the Disney branding now, but are a very, very big part of history in general. Not so much for the younger audiences, so they really needed to work out what would be the best way to use them, and I think that's why we've not seen much of the Muppets over the last couple years in the Disney parks. But I definitely think we haven't seen them because they've been thinking of ways to repurpose animatronics, repurpose shows and things like that, and rewrite them, and of course pay homage to the history of the Muppets at the Disney parks. And speaking of history, here are a few things that I'd like to see, both from the history of the parks and a few new ideas that I would like to see in the brand new Muppet Courtyard area if this was a feasible thing. Number one is the Muppet Mobile Lab. Of course, a very, very iconic part of the Muppets history in the parks. From 2016 to 2018, it met in Epcot. Of course, it saw Dr. Bunsen Honeydew and his beloved sidekick Beaker on a crazy meet and greet show, which was so technologically advanced. I absolutely love it, and I wish I could have seen it in obviously that period in time. I've not been to Florida since 2009, so I am desperate to go. But it actually premiered nearly a decade earlier in 2007. Firstly, as a playtest in California Adventure, and it was a part of Disney's Living Character Initiative, which basically brought animatronic versions of our sort of unlikely heroes that we'd meet in the full costumes that we know, and it would then get us to meet them in a slightly new way. We saw this with Remy, we saw this with Dinosaur, things like that as well, and of course these two were a huge part of that as well, and they were probably the most technologically advanced out of any of them. It was then on to Epcot in 2007, where of course they then made the permanent residency from 2016 to 2018 as well, and of course Honeydew's brief Cantonese experience over in Disneyland Hong Kong in 2008.
Here at Hong Kong Disneyland, where Dr. Bunsen Honeydew spoke Cantonese.
The show was a 12-minute partially scripted segment, and it was controlled by a load of guys backstage, which again, bearing in mind the size of the area, I think would be really, really easy to do. I think it would keep people entertained highly, and it would draw people into the Muppet Courtyard area. Of course, if people have heard there's this brand new cool walkabout character that comes out and does a show here and there, kind of how the Avengers Campus works, I definitely think it's going to bring people down that sort of section of the park, because of course people are going to walk straight past it if they don't know it's there. But it was super, super complex. There were 53 different comedy skits. This include water spraying, jets, different mist, confetti, and it was real-time reaction, which is very, very impressive, especially for the time period when it debuted in 2007. This was achieved by having 8 different hidden cameras across the actual set itself. One of them was actually in the center of Honeydew's glasses, and the other was on the front of Beaker's handlebars. Now, of course, this is a full animatronic, but it was actually also controlled backstage vocally as well, with the actual actor of Dr. Bunsen Honeydew actually being backstage for a long duration of this time, who was actually then paid to sit there and interact with different members of the public. And of course, these cameras going around the outside of the animatronic allowed them to speak directly to the person and interact correctly, where the mouth would then also move up and down. So not only was he puppeteering, but he was also voicing from backstage, which is stupidly clever.
I know, Vicky, it is hard to believe we actually got funding for that.
Now, unfortunately, we haven't seen it since 2018, except for one little appearance. It was seen backstage in part of the episode for the Imagineering story. We saw Joe Rohde, obviously now a Disney legend, so bring him back, please. He actually sort of took us around the backstage area at the Imagineering HQ, and what do we see in the background covered in a tarp? Of course, is this animatronic. Funnily enough, though, it does look like it's very much ready to go. It's very, very much ready to be shipped elsewhere, sort of debuted again. It seems to be very out in the open, which, of course, for something that's been retired, That's not what Disney do. Disney have the Walt Disney Archives for a very, very specific reason. They would have boxed this guy up thoroughly and stuck him in storage if he was never going to be used again. So it really does give us hope, and the Muppets fans that were watching that definitely saw that and thought, oh my God, is it coming back in some way, shape or form? My personal opinion, yes, it will be. I officially think that the Muppets Laboratory will be coming back for the brand new Muppets Courtyard. And funnily enough, we actually saw the Muppets Mobile Lab re-debut in 2016, October more specifically, when we saw a brand new introduction for another Muppet attraction, The Great Moments in American History, which of course sounds slightly boring, but it was a very, very fun and interactive show, which actually saw many of the different Muppets, the beloved ones of course, coming in to do a musical number talking about the American history, which is actually really, really fun. All of them were custom dressed. It was a really, really fun show that everybody really, really took a loving to. However, the main reason for its closure, number one, COVID, and number two, the front of the building that the attraction actually took place in, of course, it was a show that looked over onto the streets of America. The reason that it had to close was because that was facing the sun for 95% of the day. So that meant that all of our Muppets, I should say, sorry, not to destroy the magic there, they faded very, very quickly. So they were going through so many different versions of the puppets that were being used, which of course meant that they were just going through an unnecessary amount of money for something that realistically Disney didn't need to put on, okay? That's a big thing for the company, is they don't want to waste money just because. However, I really liked this show, mainly because they looked so realistic. Now, again, I didn't get to see the show, sadly, or from my recollection anyway. I do remember walking through Muppet Courtyard in 2009, which is sick, and I still remember the area like yesterday. The realism of these Muppets is like identical. They look like the Muppets, which no one could have asked for more. Bearing in mind we've had some pretty uncanny Muppets in the past, I definitely think the fact that we've now got Sweetums, of course, he runs around as well, and of course you've got these Muppets that were used in this show, I definitely think repurposing those in some way, shape or form is the right step forward. So for me, some sort of Muppet show that runs throughout the day, maybe different ones throughout the duration of the day, would be a very good step forward, in my opinion, for the new Muppet Courtyard. Maybe live shows, I think definitely by the duo is a definite better way of doing it. Shows with like Gonzo and Camilla, for example. Maybe a Swedish chef cooking show where everything goes crazy and goes wrong. Maybe partner him, I don't know, with Sam the Eagle, because of course he was a part of that Streets of America show as well. Maybe a Walter and Fozzie. All interactive, and it could work really, really well. It could be a mix of the classic sort of informative Muppet style that we've seen on the TV shows, because of course they do the informational side of it as well. And of course that wacky stupidity, which is why I think like a Walter and Fozzie combo would definitely work good with crowds. And again, if there's different shows that are listed on the different apps and things like that, people will be drawn into the area and fall in love with Muppet Courtyard, or the new Muppet Courtyard anyway. And speaking of the Muppet Courtyard, I do think they're going to be bringing elements of the current one over as well, potentially a sort of respectful homage, or maybe a recreation of the iconic Miss Piggy, or Statue of Liberty, or Statue of Piggy even, fountain that is in the center of Muppet Courtyard. If they don't include that itself, I definitely think that's going to be included in the pre-show queues or something like that, just to pay respects to the fact that it did exist for such a long time at the parks. However, I really don't think we're going to be seeing anything like the 1990s nightmare fuel that was at the MGM Studios. Because for this, we had full-sized Muppet characters. What? I mean, they did meet and greets, it was pretty sick. They had a couple shows, which we'll discuss in a second. However, they were absolutely frightening. The only full-size Muppet character that we should be seeing, Sweetums, as we currently see in Muppet Vision 3D. Everyone else should be the small Muppet size that we know and love. And there was actually a stage show that ran from 1990, and Jim Henson had full control of the Muppets at the parks at that point in time, of course, alongside Michael Eisner. That was the only way for that to correctly work. And it is widely believed that actually the suits themselves of the full-size Muppets have now been discarded. They have been recycled, whilst Jim Henson was still with us while they were being kept at the MGM Studios at the time. However, these were very, very creative, and I would love to see some sort of creativity like that come back in some way, shape or form, because these all had articulated mouths. In fact, they were the only characters, and they were the first characters in Disney park history to have articulated mouths, which were controlled by buttons inside the suits, which is pretty cool. Of course, that then allowed them to tell their jokes, sing their songs and things like that as well. And trust me, they did that to full Muppet fashion. Here Come the Muppets was the first one that opened in 1990, and it was very, very different, I think is the best way of putting it. Fun show, very weird looking, and as I say, these guys are full-size Muppet characters. So if these guys are remotely freaky to 6-year-olds, don't take them to go and see this show. It was definitely part of the weirder, wacky sort of 90s Disney that people do remember and love. However, it was only a temporary show while Muppet Vision 3D was being built. Muppet Live on Location was also a show that was at MGM Studios, and it actually opened at the same time as Muppet Vision. It was actually set inside the Muppet world. It was on like a TV set that they were currently filming a film on, and of course we had all of our iconic characters from over the years: Fozzie, Kermit, Gonzo, Piggy, everyone like that. But the weird part of the show was that halfway through they stopped, did a meet and greet with everybody, carried on the show, and in Muppet fashion, Kermit stuck on something sparkly, a couple of bits of tap shoes, and they all did a tap number to finish off this slightly strange show. And to top it off, Electric Mayhem were playing while the meet and greet took place. And then this actually shut down in 1994. Of course, it has been quite a while, about 30 years now, since we've seen that show. Since then, we've not seen any walk-around Muppet characters other than Sweetums, but I do want, as much as Sweetums is a great addition to Muppet Vision 3D, and I would like to see him reprise his role, I do definitely think that having a walk-around character in some way, shape, or form, especially like Sweetums, would be a really cool addition to the courtyard area. And the only other time that we've seen those walk-around characters since 1994 is in 2001 for the Stars in Motocars Parade. But speaking of these meet and greets, while we're on that topic, I would love to see a meet and greet in some way, shape, or form. Again, similar to the shows, I think it should be done in duos. I think Kermit and Piggy, Gonzo and Camilla, and Fozzie and Animal, I think those would be the most popular 3. And of course, as much as I could list so many different meet and greets that I would love to do, the whole of the Electric Mayhem, things like that, I just don't think that's possible. And especially with the fact that these guys have got to be puppeteered, if we can get 2 puppeteers per meet and greet, I definitely think that could be a really good way forward. And I definitely think, similar to the Great Moments in American History show, I definitely think that having multiple different puppeteers using this time wisely to greet people is a definite way forward, especially if you get people to stand in front of a box or something like that, or a set, and interact with them, and you've got someone controlling them behind you, put the hand on the shoulder, things like that as well. That could be a really, really, really popular meet and greet. And to be honest, personally, I would 100% pay for a photo pass with a proper picture of Kermit, because I think that would be absolutely awesome, and I definitely think that more people and the photo pass sales in general will absolutely skyrocket. Of course, in terms of restaurants as well, a big part of the Disney parks in general. Now, the actual area itself doesn't have any proper restaurant buildings at the moment, so I definitely think it's going to be slightly similar to how we see the sort of animation courtyard Pixar section over in Paris, which has a lot of sort of food truck, food van sort of areas. I reckon we could potentially see a smaller area or a smaller restaurant open. Of course, Mama Melrose is a very, very famous and very popular sit-down dining restaurant at the Muppet Courtyard currently, so people will definitely miss that food. Apparently the pasta and the spaghetti bolognese there is perfect, so I really hope I can see it before it shuts down. Or just give us like a really nice quick service Mama Melrose in the middle of the Muppet Courtyard. Again, as I say, the middle trees will probably be taken away, so to add a nice little building there could be a nice little addition to the area, even if it does open a couple months later than everything else. Of course, another very popular area is Pizza Rizzo. Again, I think that would probably be more likely to be operating out of a van, especially if it's going to be like a studio film tour theme. However, if I could choose a single restaurant to do, it would definitely be the scrapped plans for a Hard Rock Cafe, but instead of it being our modern day musicians, it was all Electric Mayhem and Muppet themed. It looked awesome. There are a lot of sort of references to this going around the area. However, a sort of Hard Rock Cafe on Disney property, they do have an exclusive deal with Universal at the moment, but I would very, very much like them, especially with the closure of Planet Hollywood. I would definitely like Disney to sign some sort of collaboration with the Hard Rock Cafe to do a Muppets collaboration. That could be sick. Maybe even dusting off a load of concepts for forgotten Muppet rides. There was actually a Muppet movie ride that was pitched, and there was loads of concepts for that. So even just including some of that in the ride in some way, shape, or form, even in the ride queue or around the area, just sort of references. Look, we're nerds. We like to go to Disney and look at these sort of different details in these specific areas, and to pay respects to some huge parts of Muppet history is definitely the way forward. But for me, my main thing that I would like to see for this area is going full Muppets mayhem. Definitely taking that as close as they can and throwing it right at us. Full pelt, I think, is the only way they can do this area correctly, and I definitely think a meet and greet in some way, shape, or form will just be so successful for them, and it would definitely be worth the closure of the current Muppet Courtyard, especially to make it that much bigger, because the plans for the Muppets in the future is very, very big. And speaking of plans for the Muppets in the future, if you did like this video, please click that like and subscribe button, because there is a video scripted, ready to be recorded. It was actually going to be this week's video, but as of yesterday's news, you get a different Muppet video. So we'll release that one in a few weeks' time, of which different films I would like to see be redone by the Muppets. And trust me, there are some very, very good ones in this list, which could be absolutely hilarious. So please, come back in a couple weeks, make sure you click that like and subscribe button. And again, help us get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2024. We are only 100 subscribers off. But yeah, thank you very much. Like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Peace. Peace.